this ability to adapt without losing authenticity is rare, because many artists either resist change and become outdated, or they change too much and lose the essence that made them unique. But she has maintained a balance where evolution feels like a natural extension of who she is rather than a departure from it. There is also a strong emphasis on storytelling within her work, not just as a creative choice, but as a method of building continuity across her projects, because storytelling allows her to create a sense of progression that connects different moments in her career into a larger narrative, giving her audience something to follow over time rather than isolated releases. And that narrative approach contributes to long-term engagement, because people are not just consuming individual songs, they are following a journey, observing growth, interpreting meaning, and forming connections that deepen with each new phase, and that depth of engagement is a key driver of sustained success. At the same time, she has demonstrated an ability to remain relevant without relying solely on trends, because while trends can boost visibility temporarily, they do not guarantee longevity, and instead of chasing every trend, she focuses on creating work that stands on its own, work that can remain meaningful even as styles change. This approach reflects a level of confidence in her artistic direction, a willingness to trust her instincts, and a commitment to maintaining a distinct identity, which allows her to stand apart in an industry that often moves in cycles of similarity and repetition. There is also the role of timing in her career decisions, because knowing when to release, when to promote, and when to step back can significantly impact how work is received, and over time, she has shown an awareness of timing that contributes to the effectiveness of her releases, ensuring that each project has the best possible environment to succeed. Beyond the creative and strategic aspects, there is also an emotional resilience that supports everything she does, because maintaining a long career in the public eye inevitably comes with criticism, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt, and being able to process those experiences without allowing them to derail progress is essential for continued growth. And rather than allowing external opinions to define her direction, she has developed a sense of internal validation, relying on her own standards, her own goals, and her own vision to guide her decisions, which creates stability even when external feedback is inconsistent or divided. That internal stability is one of the quiet strengths behind her longevity, because it allows her to remain focused on what she believes in, rather than constantly adjusting based on outside pressure, and that consistency in direction helps maintain coherence across her body of work. As her influence continues to expand, her role in the industry also evolves, shifting from just an artist to a figure whose actions can shape trends, influence other creators, and impact how music is perceived and consumed, and that level of influence adds another dimension to her presence in the industry. With that influence comes responsibility, because decisions made at that level can have wider implications, and being aware of that responsibility is part of what defines her approach to her career, ensuring that her actions align not just with personal goals, but also with the broader impact they may have. And while her journey is still ongoing, the patterns that have defined her success so far continue to point toward a model of sustained growth, where progress is measured not only by immediate results, but by the ability to remain relevant, adaptable, and impactful over time. There is also a sense that her story is far from complete, because each phase of her career opens new possibilities, new directions, and new opportunities for reinvention, and as she continues to explore those possibilities, her path remains dynamic rather than fixed. Looking at the bigger picture, her longevity is not just a result of talent or opportunity, it is the outcome of continuous learning, strategic thinking, and a deep understanding of both herself and the environment she operates in, and that combination allows her to navigate challenges while still moving forward with purpose. And as the industry continues to evolve, her ability to adapt, to create, and to maintain connection with her audience will remain central to her continued success, because in a constantly changing landscape, the ability to remain consistent while evolving is what ultimately defines long-term relevance. In the end, her journey reflects a model of sustained excellence, where each decision contributes to a larger vision, where each phase builds upon the previous one, and where success is not treated as a final destination, but as an ongoing process that requires attention, discipline, and awareness at every stage. And that is why she continues to stand out, not just as an artist, but as a long-term presence in the industry, someone who understands that winning once is an achievement, but continuing to win over time is a completely different level of mastery, and that mastery is what continues to define her career as it moves forward into the future. And as that forward movement continues, it becomes increasingly clear that her success is not maintained by a single defining factor, but by the continuous alignment of multiple elements working together, from creative output to personal discipline, from audience connection to strategic decision-making, all reinforcing each other in a way that sustains momentum over time. One of the less visible aspects of this alignment is how she manages change internally before it becomes visible externally, because by the time the public experiences a new era, a new sound, or a new direction, much of the preparation has already happened behind the scenes, through reflection, experimentation, and refinement that often takes place long before anything is released. That internal preparation allows her transitions to feel seamless rather than abrupt, giving the impression of natural progression rather than sudden shifts, and that sense of continuity is important for maintaining audience trust, because when changes feel intentional and coherent, they are more likely to be accepted and embraced rather than resisted. There is also a level of patience that plays a critical role in her process, because not every idea is executed immediately, not every concept is rushed into production, and not every opportunity is pursued without consideration. Instead, there is often a period of observation and evaluation where decisions are weighed carefully against long-term goals. This patience is closely tied to her understanding of timing, because in a fast-moving industry, releasing something too early or too late can affect its reception, and knowing when to act requires both experience and intuition, both of which have developed over the course of her career through repeated exposure to different situations. At the same time, she has shown an ability to maintain relevance across different phases of cultural change, which suggests not only adaptability, but also an understanding of how to remain aligned with the emotional and social context of her audience, ensuring that her work continues to resonate even as external conditions evolve. That resonance is not accidental, it is the result of consistent effort to stay connected to the experiences, sentiments, and perspectives of the people who follow her work, and by maintaining that connection, she ensures that her music remains relatable, regardless of how much time passes or how much the environment changes. Another key factor in her continued presence is her ability to maintain momentum without overextending herself, because sustaining a long career requires knowing how to balance productivity with preservation, ensuring that energy is used effectively rather than depleted unnecessarily. This balance often involves making decisions about workload, scheduling, and creative output that prioritize sustainability, allowing her to continue operating at a high level without compromising her well-being or the quality of her work, and that kind of balance is essential for longevity in any demanding field. There is also a quiet discipline behind her consistency, a routine mindset that supports ongoing output, because success at her level is not built on occasional effort, but on repeated, deliberate action over time, and maintaining that level of discipline requires commitment even when motivation fluctuates. And while the public often focuses on the visible outcomes, the performances, the releases, the milestones, the underlying process remains largely unseen, a continuous cycle of thinking, creating, refining, and executing that forms the foundation of everything that becomes visible. Within that process, feedback plays a role as well, not necessarily as a driving force, but as a reference point, something that can inform future decisions without dictating them, allowing her to remain open to input while still maintaining control over her direction. This ability to filter feedback, to distinguish between constructive insight and noise, is another important aspect of her longevity, because in an environment where opinions are abundant and often conflicting, the ability to focus on what is useful and ignore what is not becomes a valuable skill. As her influence continues to grow, the scope of her work expands beyond just music, touching on areas such as cultural impact, industry standards, and audience engagement, and with that expansion comes a broader set of considerations that go beyond individual projects. And managing that broader scope requires a mindset that is both adaptable and forward-looking, one that can anticipate changes, respond to challenges, and continue building in a way that aligns with long-term objectives rather than short-term reactions.